And part of the problem is that Chairman Xi has basically purged the entire system of anyone with an opinion, starting with local governments, then regional governments, the bureaucracy, media, business, everything. And to think that he's wrecked all of these different sectors of society to the point that they can barely function, but the military is the one thing that works by Western norms, that's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. If they were to take Taiwan in this hypothetical world, what would be the cascading effect to the U.S.?
Well, step one, we lose all semiconductors on a global basis that are better than about 7 or 8 nanometers. Like I said, Taiwan's where it all comes together. And the only way we would then still have the chips is if everyone in the world agreed, oh, okay, we'll just scratch off Taiwan and the delivery address and stencil in China. All it takes is a few pieces saying no, and none of it works anymore. So I'm all for diversifying the semiconductor supply chain system out of Taiwan, but it's just because the whole system is concentrated absolutely everywhere and all these essential steps.
Yeah.
We would have to actively subsidize the Chinese occupation of Taiwan if we still wanted the chips. I don't think that's going to happen.
How did Taiwan become such a powerhouse in the semiconductor world? Was it
They spent $500 billion building the fabs that no one else would build.
Well, that's probably a good way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bet. It was definitely a bet. It was a risk. They were lucky it worked out. But the very short version is 10, 15 years ago, we were getting to the best capability of what we could do with a technology called deep ultraviolet, which is how we used to make all of our chips. And then ASML, that's the Dutch company that does the lithography. They came up with a new technology called extreme ultraviolet. And most fab facilities in the world looked at these bus-sized lithography machines that cost $500 million each. Like, I don't know about that. TSMC, the Taiwanese government, decided to spend the money and try, not having no guarantee whether it would work. And it worked. And so they leapfrogged the technology with something that basically, this is an oversimplification, it's digital versus analog. So with the old DUV systems, you'd have to adjust every single machine by hand for every single chip design. And so you'd have a bigger loss rate for the final chips per disk. You would have fewer chips per disk, and no two machines would make the same exact type. So when you started to take those resulting semiconductors and putting in things like computers and motherboards and all the rest, you'd have a much higher loss rate as well. With EUV, basically you type in your specs and every machine just goes and it's all set. And so higher hit rates, lower loss rates, better applications on the backside. And on top of that, you can make smaller and smaller and smaller transistors, going down to today's limit, which is about 2.5 nanometers. So it's worked out for them, but there was no guarantee that bet was going to work.
Yeah, they certainly pushed their chips into the right location.
Yeah, red 17.
Yeah, the roulette ball. It's like, we'll take black 16, assuming that it is black. It could be green. Who knows?
Yeah. But I mean, that's part of the problem I have when you say you want to bring semiconductors back. It's like, what, with yesterday's technology, with today's technology, do you want to try for tomorrow's technology? I mean, there's so many moving pieces here. If you get one of them wrong, you're not Taiwan.
Well, and again, I'm not an expert in computing either, but I would say the vernacular of the day is AI, right? This explosion in AI, AI race. Isn't that all underpinned with this technology and these chips coming out of Taiwan anyway?
Every chip that does AI well is 5 nanometers or smaller. And so at the moment, that is 100% Taiwan. But remember, 30,000 steps. This is not going to last deglobalization. It doesn't take the loss of Taiwan. It takes the loss of one company in California or one company in Germany, and we just can't make these chips at all. The most likely outcome of where we're going to be a few years from now is we're not going to be able to do extreme ultraviolet, because it's nice to say it comes from ASML, but the supply chain to make ASML's EUV systems is actually more sophisticated than what it takes to make a chip on the back end. So the idea that this is going to hold as the world cracks, no. So we're going to have to go back to that DUV technology, and we're probably looking at something like 14 or 16 nanometers being the most advanced chips we can make. if you take those chips and use them to say apply to ChatGPT 4.0, which is the most advanced thing we have today,
Mhm.